today we're going to talk about the journey of post-production so far. I'm currently at director's cut. George is actually sitting where we edited a huge amount of Slammer. You know, had a month or two, and we, you know, bish bosh, jumped in the edit, and it was all done and dusted.
Oh no, obviously it didn't start there because you know, we had a lot of remote working and stuff. It all started off normally in terms of going right, getting the rushes, want to put them together, but lo and behold, COVID kicked in pretty swiftly. So obviously all editing plans had to change, because obviously what we like to do is go, right, I'm getting block 1 and block 2 in and piecing those together, starting the assembly edit. And then obviously we got that to a good place, but because of COVID, we were waiting for, you know, 3 to 4 months ish to get block 3. So
the pandemic is horrific in all ways. Let's be honest, the pandemic is horrific, except one way. It just gave us more time to sweat over what we had and what we needed. Joe Donaghy, Adam McHattie, yourself, Kevin Brazier, you know, creating some sounds or talking about sound. I know I've got the script, and I know I've got a storyboard that will help, that will inspire, but it definitely wasn't shot for shot, because the script had to change because of the duration it took. And yeah, there was a lot of sort of finding our feet at the same time as trying to make it.
Yeah, well, obviously things changed as well based on COVID kicking in, because obviously while we were doing block 1 and 2 and you were waiting on when you could possibly get in and, you know, start filming block 3, COVID, with all this sort of COVID restrictions, you know, in those first couple of months when it first kicked in, you had no idea what was happening, so nothing could go ahead. But I suppose the good thing is, because we had that time to get block 1 and 2, it gave you a lot of insight into what you needed to get in block 3 and help really sort of craft that last stage of filming.
Yes,
so
exactly.
Yeah, what we essentially did was, when I came on board and chatted to the other 2 editors, I came up with a plan and said, look, you know, to make this kind of easier on ourselves, let's split the whole edit up. So basically, I just split it up into 20 scenes at a time. So I'd say, look, right, Joe, you take scenes 1 to 20, I'll take 21 to 40, Adam, you take, you know, blah, blah, blah. And whoever got to the end of their 20 scenes first would then say, I'm done, start on the next 20. And that's kind of how it worked. And then ultimately, I decided to take on everything myself and have the master time, like further down the line when we have to push things out to grade and sound and it getting very complicated. So I just decided to start a master project, ask them to send everything in, and then I'd organize it all on my end. And it just kept things cleaner. So it just meant they could just go, right, here's my project with scenes 10 to 20, 30 to 40, for example. I'd then bring it in, add it into mine, check the timeline, and then give it to you for a final export. Because before that, we were just sending you little clips of going, right, this
it was even worse than that, because you were sending me little clips, but I was based at the mother-in-law's in a tiny village outside of Canterbury, where the internet was so slow, it would take, I mean, a day to get 10 seconds, 20 seconds.
There's a specific way I like to work, and also I slightly changed my tactics because of it. You know, usually it's just me on a feature film, or that's been my experience up to this point. So having to coordinate with 2 other editors was a, you know, different kind of challenge. We need to talk about and come up with a very standardized way we're all going to work in terms of how you
were the one that took responsibility for that, and I was very thankful of that, because you exported a scene on your big TV. Have you got a big Samsung TV? Is it Samsung?
Yeah, Samsung. Yeah.
Whoop. The irony is, of course, I'm doing this interview on a wonderful MacBook Pro. Then you see it on your massive giant TV. It just takes on a completely different feeling.
Yeah, we're seeing it more as you would as a consumer. So you sort of sit there and go, no, actually, that's not a problem. That works really well. Or actually, no, that doesn't make sense. And you're seeing it as an audience member.
You're seeing it as if you're seeing it in the cinema. Yeah. So we shot it big screen. We shot it 2391. You got good instincts, very important. But interestingly, you also should play poker. And I mean, if you don't play poker, you should learn poker immediately, because what happens?
I play poker, but I haven't really played it much.
You should really play it professionally, because what will happen is we'll do a scene. You don't mind going, okay, we're going to change that. And what we'll do is we'll have what I know works, and then a little injection of George there, just to improve it a little bit. It keeps you on your toes. If you're paying attention, you'll pick up 10 times more. It isn't a lock stock remake. I haven't tried to redo a Ken Loach. I haven't tried to remake Kes. You know, when you're in the edit suite, in the cold, hard light of day, you're going to be able to make your assessment based on what you've got, not what you think you got. So, you know, Kevin Brazier, for example, his sound mix is just mind-blowing. It really is. And that adds another layer. But where we are now, I'm sitting in director's cuts, reviewing a massive spreadsheet of everything, and then seeing like, what can we do? What can't we do? You know, trying to keep to the original vision, not sacrificing too much.
You had to be quite creative with the edit, because obviously due to constraints, you couldn't film it exactly how you wanted. And so because of that, we had to create something in the edit to make it still have the same effect and feeling that you were going for without necessarily having the footage. And, you know, that's where it's good being, you know, a cinephile, because you've got this knowledge of all these things. You go, actually, you know, they did this and that worked really well. And I think we can do something similar that will solve this editorial, you know, problem for us. And, you know, there's been a fair bit of that throughout Slammer where we've taken influences. So it'll be interesting to see if people can pick up on.
Let's run through them. So let's make references to certain films, you know, that 100% is inspired. So Dial M for Murder, Old Boy, Usual Suspects. There's a scene, there's a nod to Texas Chainsaw Massacre in one particular scene. I mean, Silence of the Lambs, which again makes it sound like it's a gory horror film, which it's not. Then you've got we mentioned that's right, The Godfather. Then there's definitely a Ken Loach, a little bit of Ken Loach. There's a bit of Ken Russell. There's a nod to Altered States.
You know, even if I need to do some running on set, I'll do that. Like whatever gets the film done.
Yeah. I mean, at this stage, we all. Yeah, I'm happy to be your. In fact, I was your post-production runner. I made more tea in your flat than you did.
That you did.
And I'm terrible. I'm terrible at making tea. Ask Charles Oakton. But I mean, it can't really go wrong with. We did a lot of mint teas and fruit teas, so we can't really go too wrong with that. Although actually,
I'm definitely a herbal tea man.
Herbal tea. Yeah, you've got a very good selection of herbal teas.
Well, you're always going to project a bit of what you've grown up with into any films you do, because you know you're doing this because you've got that film bug. So whether you're channeling a bit Spielberg, a bit Cameron,
David Lynch. We talked about the time and how long it's taken, and the fact that we're in the sort of final furlong at director's cut. You know, Mark, Mike, Andy, the two Andys. You know, the coordinators here, the runners here, the supervisors, just everybody is absolutely incredible. But I can mention any film, and you will know it. That's an important point, I think. If you're working with somebody who loves film, I mean, you grow, you know, it's in your blood. You grow up. Yeah. With Brian Clemens, who I don't think it's an exaggeration, and you will correct me if it is an exaggeration, but I don't think it's an exaggeration to say that he was responsible for a TV show that was the equivalent of Game of Thrones today. So
I mean, the Avengers, which he created, is the only show. I mean, that might have changed now, but up to my recollection, it's the only British show that got onto primetime America because it was so popular. And yeah, that show changed the generation just in terms of, you know, how people view television, and also in terms of like even fashion. Like it was like
inspiring bonds, inspiring. You can make a link to the Avengers, and you can draw parallels to films that came after it that were dramatically inspired by, you know, the big films. And you know, he's a wonderful writer. You know, you've got. I mean, again, I can edit this out if you don't want me to mention it. But basically, you've got your dad's script. You've got a filing cabinet that's this this big that's filled with Brian Clemens scripts.
We've actually got three. Yeah,
three of them. Yeah. And what's interesting about that is that you and Sam very kindly was like, well, I'll open it up, and you gave me one of them, and I'm sort of sat there and I was sort of reading, reading one of his scripts, and that's tremendously exciting.
What I'd sort of subconsciously, absorbed over all those years now becomes very useful, and I think that's what helps me in terms of things when it comes to editing and everything else, because I sort of pull on that knowledge that I've gained since birth, essentially.
Since birth,
as they say, there's the film you write, the film you shoot, and the film you edit. It's just, and as you say, the edit can be considered the final draft of the script, because obviously things will change massively, because obviously in the film industry nothing goes to exact plans. Shots are dropped, people are off, you have to rethink things, so obviously it's always going to deviate from the script, because on the day you might go, well, actually we can't shoot that scene the way we wanted to, because let's say maybe there's bad weather that's affecting how we can do that, or maybe there's a problem with the location, or as I say, someone can't make it on the day, so you have to rethink how to do that scene with potentially missing an actor or something, and it's and then in the edit you will come across those again, and you'll find a creative way to resolve them, like we've done with quite a few bits where, as you say, you haven't been able to necessarily get everything you want, but we found creative ways to utilize what footage we do have to say, okay, well, we can't do the scene this way, but we can still get the right tone and feeling and get the same sort of message across by doing it this way. So structurally, in terms of story, it still works. Just visually, it's a different way of thinking about it.
Yeah. And what were you editing on?
I was editing on Adobe Premiere Pro. Thankfully, before the start of this, I managed to get my hands on the new Mac Pro, which certainly helped speed things along, because my old system would have handled it just about, but it would have slowed down the process. So I was very glad to get that, to be able to be a lot swifter in terms of, not having any system crashes or whatever. But yeah, I was working on Adobe Premiere Pro.
I mean, we're making El Mariachi, not Desperado. We're making, I love both those films, but just to give you, the idea, we're making The Following, not Memento. We're making Shallow Grave, not Trainspotting,
Yeah.
That's not to say that it can't compete at the highest level, in my humble opinion. But it's, it is what it is.
And there's just one more thing as well. That's the other important skill I think an editor should have, is you need to have the ability to be ruthless with the edit, and essentially kill the directors, producers, darlings. Something's not working, and I know why it's not working, and it's because you're so attached to that one scene. And I know it's something that, maybe it's the most expensive scene, but if it's not working for the story, you've got to be prepared to be able to lose it. So what I like to do is say, look, just let me do my cut, you'll watch it, and just let me know what you think, because obviously you can always put it back in.
Yeah, of course. And actually, that's you actually made a really, really valid point. That is a really important point, to hand over to somebody and trust them. And I'm not making any reference to any scenes that are there or not there, because the film will end up being exactly what we want it to be. But if from a director's point of view, you're so emotionally attached, you should be emotionally attached. It should pain you on some level to not have everything you want. But that's the job of the editor. The job of the editor is to say, you're going to end up with a better film, and that's what you're making. You're not making a 3-hour vanity project. You're making a feature that needs to compete at the highest level. We know, as in you and I know, but we don't really know until it goes out there to the global public, and then they'll tell you, and they will be 10 times more ruthless than anything.
Yeah, you've got to be, as a filmmaker, I've always been prepared to be able to tear my film apart better than anyone else, because obviously you're going to know the flaws and everything else in it.
All you can do is present it, and let it, go out of your hands and into the ether, and hopefully, a few more people like it than don't like it. But I have to say thank you, because we've got like a couple of minutes left, so I have to say a big thank you, because it's such a long journey, and we're still on that journey. In fact, George, because you've got to come to Director's Cut to review a few things.
Fair enough. I'll put it in my diary.
But yeah, thank you for your time. Thank you for your, and I mean that, thank you for your time on this podcast. Thank you for your time since the very, very beginning. Yeah, can't wait to celebrate on the 10th of September.
Yeah, thank you very much, Ted. It's been great.
Thank you, mate. You're a legend. All the best. Take care.
Yeah, you too. Cheers.
Bye.